32-inch butterfly valve in on Thomaston Avenue. We did that deliberately, slowly, and carefully so as not to jolt the system and cause further problems or potential leaks or breaks in the system. That took quite a while to do that. We've never done it before. I think it took a little longer than we had expected. But at 8:30 last night, we were able to begin increasing the pressure and releasing the 30-inch pressure line into the system to fill that. Overnight, most of the system has filled up. At this point, there is water throughout the system. Everyone should have water at this point. I know there was an issue a little bit earlier today after we announced that we discovered with East Mountain. Part of that problem was an airlock in the tanks, and those homes are fed exclusively by the tanks up there. So if the water didn't get into the tanks, the homes weren't getting water. But once that was identified, we were able to get up there and rectify that. There are a couple of other places in the city at very high altitudes that may not yet have water, but it's on its way. But what I would say to people right now is most people should have water. So if you don't have water, call 311 or call the water department, and we will try to get out there to see what the problem is. I know people are posting a lot on Facebook on the neighborhood things. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. That's fine. But that's not the way to communicate best with the city. So if you are having a problem, please call us. Then we'll know about it, and we can get out there as quickly as we can to try to address it. So we will be doing the testing. We haven't done it yet, right? We're going to do the testing later today. So 24 hours will bring us till tomorrow, and we expect to have a clean bill of health going forward. If we don't, then we'll test again in 24 hours. And schools, which have been closed for 3 days, we will be opening schools tomorrow. So all of our schools at this point have water. There are 2 schools that are having a little bit of a problem with a backflow valve. As the water went on, they popped out, but we're in the process of repairing those. But we, at this point, fully anticipate going back to school tomorrow, Friday, and Monday, and then they're off for the rest of the following week for their holidays. So with that, I'll just ask Brad to come up and talk a little bit about what they've been doing, and then we'll take any questions.
Sure. So thank you. As the mayor said last night, late last night, we went live on the 30-inch high-pressure main into the east side of the city. With that came a lot of inherent risk, which we spent the entire night trying to mitigate. We had full crews of guys on fire hydrants at key locations, making sure that we were forcing air out of the system. Like I said this morning, on the radio this morning, the big risk for me was not so much the mains. That was a risk, but I didn't want to blow people's service lines out. A lot of those service lines where they connect to the main are old. I mean, really old. Probably, when your house was built, and there are some old homes over there. I didn't want to blow those out because repairing a main is one thing. Repairing 2,000 or 3,000 water services is completely another. Now I'm digging up every single yard trying to get those things repaired so people have services. I know people were aggravated. I know people were upset with me. That's fine. I'll accept that because we didn't blow out a single service main on anyone's house. So there's a difference between me saying I wanted to fill the system with water and then add pressure, and that's what we did. So when I said, hey, the system has water in it, and everybody's, well, I got no water in my house. Well, that's because we're adding no pressure. We're not pushing it into your house. So I needed to make sure that nowhere did the water, the high pressure water hit a cavity, hit an open line, hit a line that had nothing but air in it. Because all that would have done was just blow the line apart or blow your service line apart or just cause problems that we didn't want to get into yesterday. So we went slow on purpose. Now overnight, system is fully pressurized. We ran into some problems with some frozen vents, some frozen hydrants. Obviously there's been no water or no running water in some of those lines for days now. So we ran into some issues on our tanks. Some of them were airlocked. We had to go out, relieve the air. Some of our pumps were airbound, like just normal things that we were anticipating, just trying to find all of them, trying to get to all the problems. And now the issue is, or not an issue, the fine line that we're walking right now is everybody has pressure, everybody has pressured water. We turn on the pump stations to fill the tanks, that steals some of the water. So people woke up this morning and their pressure was great and everything was fine, and now we're trying to fill the tanks because the tanks kind of feed the higher elevation areas of the city. So now we're trying to feed those tanks so those people have normal pressure, and that's stealing the water. So we're walking a fine line between stealing the water and filling the tanks, and we're running it on cycles so nobody's going without water at this point, but the water pressure is going to fluctuate as we get our system full. Today, hopefully those tanks will get filled up. I'm running the treatment plant at maximum capacity right now. The treatment plant can't pump any more water to the city. So we're doing everything we can to put as much water into the system as we can safely. I still don't want to pump, 250 pounds of pressure down Thomason or down through Watertown, because that could cause all kinds of other problems. So as much as we can do safely is what I'm doing right now to mitigate anything happening. But as we stand right now, no one in the city has no water. Everyone has water at this point. You might have very little pressure because you're existing solely off of Hitchcock Tank or East Mountain. Even East Mountain is almost full at this point. So those people should be perfectly fine. But there are other high tanks behind Blackie's over near Cheshire. There's a water tank that feeds that whole community. That's the highest point in our system. So that's the hardest point to get full. That's where our focus is going right now, is getting water into those tanks and making sure that we're doing it safely and making sure that we're doing it without causing further problems or robbing Peter to pay Paul to get the tanks full. We're trying to not take too much water out of the system to get the tanks full, and that's kind of the fine line we're walking right now. But all it's going to require is a little bit of patience today, and it's also going to require a little bit of I know you've been without water for 4 or 5 days, and I know when you got it this morning, it was exciting, and everybody was happy to get it, and people start doing laundry and doing the dishes and doing everything that they haven't been able to do. Well, it doesn't exactly help. And I'm not telling you not to do those things. Obviously, it's your home, it's your water. What I'm asking is that you allow us to get our system full and get it under control before everybody decides that they're going to do the routine things that they haven't been able to do for the past few days. And with that, I'll hand it back to the mayor. Thank you.
Thanks. Just before we take some questions, I just want to remind everybody that if you do have water flowing now, you still should boil it before you drink it, make baby formula with it, or use it to prepare foods until such time as we get the test results back. So same thing for restaurants. Until those test results come back, they should all remain closed unless they have a completely separate alternate source of water from the city system. With that, does anyone have any questions?
I think just sort of expanding on the last thing you just said and the last thing Brad just said, I think because this has been such an evolving situation, and where we are now almost feels like, okay, we're in a solid space for today as far as how this has been going. Can you be very clear about what people cannot, should not be doing with the water in their home? As you just laid out, there's so many different ways we use water: washing clothes and dishes, brushing our teeth, drinking it, cooking with it. There's a million ways we use water. Can you be very clear about what we should and should not be using our water for?
I'm going to ask our health director, Aisling McGuckin, to answer that. She's the expert in that stuff. So,
thank you, Mayor. We actually published a FAQ document on our website and on the social media, the Waterbury Health Department, Facebook and Instagram, because these are the kind of questions that we're getting from the 311 line, which we're manning. Some of the things I mentioned on WATR we were on a little while ago. If you're making baby formula, you should use bottled water. You shouldn't do boiled water. It's not appropriate for babies to be drinking this water, be exposed even if it's boiled. If you are making coffee, you need to boil your water. You can't put it into the coffee maker and expect it to come out hot, and that's not boiled, it's hot. So all of those kinds of things we've summarized. There's a document we didn't author. It's from the Department of Public Health at the state, so it's verified information that outlines very frequently asked questions about how to use water. Anyone who has an open wound that's healing, they should not shower yet. They should use baby wipes to get clean until we get the test results back. Anyone who is immune compromised, including older adults who are not as able to fend off an infection, they should also refrain from showering in the water until we get the test results back. This is out of an abundance of caution. Adults who don't have any of those kinds of conditions and that aren't, who are not as susceptible to infection, they can confidently shower with this water. They can confidently wash clothes, wash dishes. If you're hand washing dishes, please let them drip dry. Don't use a towel to dry them, because then that towel has, if there were bacteria in the water, the bacteria in them, and you're going to continue to just spread infection. E. coli is the predominant infection we're most concerned about with a change in the water quality. So we're being as cautious as possible in giving this guidance, because it is time for people to start getting together. When people start to get together, people start to get sick and spread illness. So we're just trying to prepare people for the holiday season. We're in the middle of Hanukkah, so that they can get together and celebrate safely.
Thank you, Director McGregor. Gautam, while actually we still have you, there's been a lot of talk about restaurants this week. Can you share with us, yesterday you had mentioned you were doing some site visits with restaurants, really more educational purposes. Where does that stand now? Are you continuing to do it today? What is your relationship right now with Waterbury's restaurants?
Right now we're completing documentation on those restaurants that have been not receptive to our guidance to close, and we will be issuing violations to those.
Could you be a little bit more specific about what the line is for citing restaurants? Because yesterday you had really talked about how this was very educational. Are there restaurants that are refusing to close?
There are certainly, and our staff have tried to impress upon them that the liability, if anyone becomes ill, is on them, not on the city, because we have been very clear. We've gone through the steps of collaboratively trying to do education. Others, multiple shifts of staff are working, and so making sure that we're going back and revisiting those that are remaining open, so that it's not, the message is, it's not that the message isn't getting passed along, but at this point, the message has been clear, and I think it behooves us to follow the law and really enforce it.
Are you citing restaurants that were previously not in compliance, but are since you have spoken with them?
We are not, because they responded to the guidance that we gave them.
Any idea, gives the number of restaurants or even just a scale, or is that something you need to look up later?
It is something I'd have to look up. Thank you. Yes, it is something I'd have to look up. All of our documentation is done through an electronic system, so we've been tracking all of the work that the inspectors have been doing. All their visits since the boil water alert was issued on Saturday, early morning. We've been tracking all of that information so that we can get to this point and say, education was received and, they closed, or, the alternate.
How many samples are you planning to send out for testing today?
I believe we're sending out 27, representative of every part of the city, low service and high service, and from I think in there we have City Hall, and I think we have 7 schools as part of the collection plan. So we're trying to cover a good representative sample of the city.
And every one of those needs to come back clean before the boil.
Everyone. Yep. 100% of them have to be clean.
Can we have Superintendent Schwartz a few questions?
You may not answer, but you can ask. So go ahead. I'll try.
Good morning, Superintendent.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Let's just, if you could just sort of cast a wide net here, let's just start here.
Sure.
What are you doing right now to get schools ready after 3 days off? And,
Sure.
And obviously, a boil water notice in effect as of right now.
Yeah, so we have hundreds and hundreds of cases that are ordered and ready to go to the schools for tomorrow. Obviously, all of the bubblers and drinking fountains will be covered for tomorrow. They'll be flushed, but they'll be covered. We don't want any students inadvertently taking a sip of water that they would naturally do during a school day. So we do have water at all the schools. They'll be delivered for them to be able to have that. We're also going to encourage all parents and staff to, if they do have an extra water bottle, to send it in. to help if they are able, but if not, we will have that extra water available. We're also taking extra precaution for all of our food services, making sure that we're abiding by the health department's recommendations, whether it's food preparation and food handling, so that students are safe when they eat their food.
It's assumed that food is obviously being prepared off-site if this boil water order is still in effect when school starts tomorrow.
So the good news is we've had a few days to prepare for this, obviously, and so a lot of the food is already prepackaged, being able to be delivered. Those that the food that isn't prepackaged, it will not need to be handled and cooked regularly. We'll be able to cup that food in and do it in a safe way for students.
This might be turning into the health department's territory, but you had mentioned yesterday about the concerns of not being able to open school today were things like not being able to flush toilets and
Yep.
sanitize spaces.
Yep.
Obviously, the former is no longer a concern, but
Right.
the latter, can you still safely sanitize schools with the water that is currently at your hands?
Our chief sanitarian has been working closely with the director of food services to come up with alternatives. There is guidance from the FDA food code within the food code to provide alternate solutions in the case of a water emergency. Things like using spray Lysol or something that's, again, prepackaged, is not a mix. It has to be prepared with water, are a safe alternative in order to sanitize surfaces.
So in the state of Connecticut, we're required to have 180 school days. Waterbury Public Schools right now on the calendar has 181 scheduled. We also have some days that are coming up that are possibly professional development days that we can look at. And so we'll either make them up throughout the school year with discretionary days, and just like a winter storm, we will have to make that up at the end of the school year. But we do have to hit the 180 mark before June 30th.
Question for either the mayor or Bradley. Earlier this week it was talked about how kind of this was an unlucky series of events that kind of cascaded upon one another, but you're also dealing with a system, and the original break was on a pipe that was over 100 years old. I guess through this experience, what have you learned? What lessons have you learned about your own system, and how might those be applicable to other cities, municipalities, water systems that have similarly old, aging systems in Connecticut?
So, having not been in this position very long, I had not really had the opportunity to kind of thoroughly learn it. I've been given a rookie quarterback crash course in what this system, how it operates, and some of the key things that it's missing. I learned a lot of that during the Huntington Avenue break earlier this year. At that point, I started putting plans together with the mayor's office to roll out a pretty extensive capital plan for the next fiscal year. I wasn't this budget was already obviously already set. With this break, I learned that there are actually places that infrastructure should exist that doesn't exist at all. It's given me a much better understanding of the things that need to happen and the timeline that they need to happen in, which is why both myself and the mayor agree that we're not going to be waiting for the new fiscal year to roll out a budget that I think will at least attack the immediate needs that we have right now. There are things in our system, valves in our system, and pipes in our system that need to be replaced, that needs to happen now. We can't wait for it, and we're not going to wait for it. I think this has shown us that when you, throughout the years and over the decades, and you just let things kind of fall into disrepair because they're working, it's not the correct approach. And that's not to say people made incorrect decisions or, it wasn't in anybody's forefront, but those things need to be addressed immediately. And so that's what we're going to do. So obviously this break that is on Thomason Avenue right now, the whole city has water right now. So I'm not under the pressure of making this repair in order to get people water back. This repair is just sitting dead in the road right now. So we're going to rip it all out. We're going to fix everything. We're going to put new pipe in the ground. We're going to put new valves in the ground, new air reliefs, new everything that we need in order to make this all brand new in that area of the city. And when we do, we're going to hook up our brand new 42-inch main on Thompson Avenue to it, which is going to lead to, you know, a robust level of stability that we haven't had in that area in decades. But being afforded the opportunity to actually have that time to do that is, that's what you need. You can't just continue to go in and, you know, make temporary repairs or not the repairs you wanted, you know, to make because you didn't have the time because you got to get people the water back. Well, now everybody has water, so we're going to make the repairs that we need. And there are a few other key appurtenances, key valves that throughout this process I've learned. And one of the problems is that a lot of these things don't exist on maps. And it's just, that's a fact for the city of Waterbury. And sometimes you don't learn what you have or don't have until you're in the ground. Now, we have done, our engineer has done extensive mapping, GISing. For the past 5 years, we have been working as diligently as a person can work on getting the things that are in the ground on paper, so we know where they are. A lot of what we have are called old 40 scale maps and 400 scale maps that, you know, they were actually like blueprinted. It's not digital. They're downstairs in a room, and you have to go downstairs and flip through them and find what you're looking for and hope it's not faded away to the point that you can't see it or somebody didn't spill their coffee on it or whatever it is. All those things have to go through a process of being digitized, and that it takes time. And it's not something that we're going to accomplish overnight, but we are working on it. And so we know there are a few things that need to be replaced, and I'm going to attempt to replace those things under the guise of an emergency, because it is an emergency, right? If those things go, we're back into a situation where people are losing water. And my job in this city is to ensure that people have water. And so when that doesn't happen, I take it personally. I haven't been home since Friday. I've been sleeping in this office trying to make sure that everything is going the way that it needs to go, because the level of empathy that I feel for people without the water, it hits me personally. It's not just, it's what I do here. And so I'm going to declare the emergency, and I'm going to keep it there until all the appurtenances are in place, or at least some of the appurtenances are in place that allow me to isolate one part of the system from the other part and backfeed into each other. So no matter what happens, one street might lose water, you know, these houses might lose water over here, but tens and tens of thousands of people don't lose water. And that's my goal in the next few months, is to have those things in the ground and operational.
And will that be above and beyond the 30 million that you already put?
Yes, that money's spent and gone. That's the slip lining, the pump station, the tanks, and the treatment plant. That money's gone, and those projects are wrapping up, almost done. Now it's time to focus on the things in the ground that we know are in disrepair, that we know need to happen. That's going to happen. I know there's a main downtown on at Washington Street going over the bridge that has to be replaced. That will help a lot of our problems. All those things are going to happen. Those other things will be part of my capital budget rollout for the next fiscal year. But as of right now, there are things that are going to happen in the next couple months that I'm going to do to ensure that we don't end up in this situation again.
I know it's the early stages of that planning, especially as it relates to the project on Thompson Avenue, but is there any ideas in terms of what, now that it's open, what you want to make it cost, any timeline on that?
So, obviously the timeline is a big deal, right? When you order a $200,000 36-inch valve, they're not just sitting on someone's shelf. All right, a lot of times you got to find where it's at, or they got to put it together and send it to you. So the timeline's a big deal. So, Scott Dayton, our contractor, our valve contractor, has already taken the liberty of he's got that ball rolling. We've procured all the pipe that we need. That stuff started coming up from Alabama last week. It's on site now. So all the ductile iron, the fittings that we need to go from concrete pipe, which is existing in the ground, to ductile iron to build the kind of ductile iron manifold that we need in the ground right now. That's all on site. I would like to say a personal thank you to my very close friend at Regional Water Authority and MDC, who both graciously reached out in like kind of my lowest time of need and said, we have these parts. Send somebody over in a truck and get them, replace them when you can. You know, so a lot of parts came from Regional Water Authority, MDC, some other smaller municipalities reached out, but we had already kind of procured everything that we needed. So we have most of everything we need on site. A lot is showing up in the next couple days. The hole itself now is almost ready to be excavated, and once it's excavated and we get the full extent of what's in the ground, I'll have a better idea of what exactly needs to happen, how far back we need to go, rip this concrete pipe out, you know, what kind of, we're gonna have to put all new bedding down. It was all washed out. And, you know, part of the problem too is what a lot of people don't understand is that Thomason Avenue is a state road. And on a state road exists, under the pavement, exists 12 to 14 inches of concrete all the way across the road. So when the 12-inch let go and it washed everything out into the park, and there was nothing holding up the pipe, and the pipe collapsed, and the joint broke, and it has a giant hole in the joint. Well, as soon as all that happened, the concrete also came down and busted everything. So it was kind of a culmination of, like I said, all things bad. The pipe broke itself, and then this, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of concrete came down on top of it. And so there's a lot of work to be done, and I don't know the extent of all of it, but I'm not under the pressure of getting people water back in order to repair it. People have the water back, and now we're going to take our time and make sure that we do it right and make sure that we do it thorough, and that everything that we need for future diversions or close this valve, open this line, do this, do whatever we need, all those things are going to take place in this repair.
I have one last question for the mayor. I know we're not celebrating anything right now. We laid out the plan on Monday and have so far avoided any major setbacks, and people have water in their homes this morning. How are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm very happy that they have water this morning. I wish they had it yesterday. We had hoped to get it earlier. Some of this took a little longer than we thought, but I am glad that we're back to where we need to be at this point, and we're getting this all finalized, especially given that next week is Christmas. You know, the students will be back tomorrow. They're only going to be in school 3 days before they're out for their Christmas break, and they'll all be home. So this will make the holidays a lot better for people. We will continue to push, you know, to make sure that we're putting things in place that will keep this from happening again. I don't think anyone can stand here and tell you that in any water system there's never going to be a break or a leak or a problem, but if we can contain it in a much smaller area, it'll make a big difference. So I'm also happy that, you know, we're starting to work on those plans as well. So and I feel good because in this community, people have come together, right? A crisis can bring out the worst and the best in people, and it's done a little of that throughout this crisis. But the majority of people, it's brought out the best, and they've looked out for their neighbors. They came to volunteer. If they had water or showers, they made them available to each other. That's what a community is all about, and that's what makes Waterbury such a terrific place. And we saw much more of that here than we saw of anything else. So, so that makes me feel happy too as we go into this holiday season. And the last thing I just want to let people know, I didn't mention this earlier, is because we're still waiting for the testing, the water station at Municipal Stadium remains open today, and we expect to open it at least early tomorrow because we don't know what the test results will be, so people can continue to get potable water, and then we'll probably phase it out after that. So, any other questions?
Given that you go as far as to declare this repair an emergency, what are your main concerns with the systems at this point?
My main concern with the system is my ability at this point to manipulate the system to ensure that everyone has water. Right now, we're not able to do that in key locations in the city, and we know it. the plan was to attack that under the new capital budget coming out in June and July, right? I'm not gonna wait for that. I'm going to ensure that should something happen, we have mitigated that risk by taking care of that problem now. We know the valves in the ground that do not hold. I mean, part of the reason that we had to put the line stop back in Huntington Avenue to hold back Bunker Hill in the west end was because we knew the valve further down the road doesn't work. I'm gonna rip the valve out of the ground. I'm gonna put line stops and a bypass in, and I'm gonna rip it out of the ground, and I'm gonna put a new one in. That's the kind of thing where I know it doesn't work, so I in good faith, I can't just leave it there, because when the next thing happens, now we've gone through 2 breaks and I knew that valve didn't work. So that valve's coming out of the ground and a new one is going in, where we have the ability to isolate the west end with a valve, not calling in a contractor to put a line stop in for a temporary fix or a temporary holdback of water. That's not what I want to do. I want Waterbury's appurtenances to be in the ground, and I want to be able to operate them. So my concerns are that we get to a point that I don't have those kind of problems, that the water department doesn't have those kind of problems that are existing. And, you know, it's been overlooked. It's not broken. Hey, let's not fix what's not broken. Those kind of things. Well, it's broken now. And, you know, there's only one person standing, one group of people standing here who felt the effects of that. And in hindsight, it's easy to say, it wasn't a big deal. It's a big deal now, and it's going to come out of the ground now, and it has to. We have to get to a point where I can say, all right, let's isolate East End. Let's hold the water back on both sides of the city. Let's isolate low service. Let's divert low. All things that this system, when designed, was capable of doing. It's not a design flaw in the system. The system is designed beautifully. There are 3 transmission mains, 1 low service, 2 high service. 1 high service goes down, you could feed the entire city with the 42 or the 30. We're feeding the entire city with 1 transmission main right now. It's designed beautifully. It's the maintenance and the uptake or the upkeep and everything else that kind of fell by the wayside through the decades. And now we're paying the price for that, and those things have to be fixed. So what I've learned and my concerns all kind of fall back onto that platform. We have to do the work that we have to do.
Thank you all very much. Hopefully we won't see you all again in the near future. I hope you all have a very great holiday. Thank you for being here.
Merry Christmas, everybody.